too much concern for liability. If you were smart about it, you could pretty well get away with it and know that your liability is pretty insignificant, right? If you're careful, if you're smart. But if they make marijuana as illegal as it is, we know why marijuana is illegal, right? It's a gateway drug. Because you can't smoke pot and not realize that the government's totally full of shit. It's a gateway to freedom. It's a gateway to questioning, right? And you see how the conversation has shifted? Like in the 90s, it was, why is pot illegal? It's safer than alcohol and it's real medicine for people. Come on. And now it's, hold on a second. Who the hell are you to tell me what I can and can't put in my own body? And right now, I think it's fair to say that we are experiencing the end of
sorry about that.
You see the dominoes now falling for medical marijuana, and it is central to the entire racket of the war on drugs, marijuana. Everything else is going to come after that. But it's like watching a chunk of a glacier, right, fall off. It's like there's a crack and a groan, and then it shifts, and then it starts to slide, and then boom, it's just a matter of time, right? You've got that now. The paradigm has shifted. We are pulling government in line in this one particular dimension, and it really is huge. I mean, central to the government racket, we see the monetary system really at the top of the pyramid, the warfare racket, military-industrial complex, welfare, education, and right up there, war on drugs. Prison-industrial complex, big pharma, law enforcement, the judicial system, everybody else who's got a finger in that pie, all the industries that are threatened by hemp, we know the original history with the William Randolph Hearst and the paper industry. But I think it's fair to say now that because the awareness is changing, we are actually experiencing a psychedelic renaissance in America right now. And it's actually been creeping up probably for the last decade. And it's really cool to see. But as amazing as it was to have that access to to marijuana in DC for the guys with PTSD, last year I read an article that I want to say really, really pissed me off, but it just was like one of those moments where you're like, how many of you have heard of MDMA, Molly? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to assume you with your hands up have tried it. Molly was originally developed, there's different street names and versions. Ecstasy is usually a version that's cut with something else. But the pure form MDMA was originally developed as a couples therapy drug in the 80s. Because it makes you want to connect with people. The government can't have that. They need you afraid and divided and disconnected, right? And at some point they said, because it was catching on in the rave scene, people are having fun with this. Better make it illegal, because it's for the kids. Actually, that's not true. You want to know the real reason? It makes a lot more sense. 2 hits, 2 weeks apart, 2 sessions, supervised by a trained therapist, cures PTSD in a clinical sense for almost every patient suffering from it with clinical symptoms. Gets rid of them entirely. And I was like, I spent years. Holy crap. I mean, you guys know how much 2 hits of MDMA costs, or a hit of MDMA costs? Maybe on the Silk Road. Can't get it on the street in Des Moines, but on the Silk Road, it's like $10. You can, Silk Road or whatever's replaced it now, I wouldn't know. But can you imagine? What would it cost if they were allowed to manufacture that legally? Less than it would cost to package and deliver it. You compare that to a lifetime of Prozac and therapy, gee, kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? But what's the stuff that they make really, really, really illegal? Anybody familiar with my YouTube channel? Thank you! And if you're wondering how that happened, I have a series of videos. I documented my first 6 DMT experiences. And I was in Colorado. Yeah, surprise, surprise. And a guy came to me and was like, hey, you got a YouTube channel, you got your camera. You want to make a video doing DMT? And I was like, well, gee, as long as you can find a place for this before I can think of one of a million reasons why it's a terrible idea, yeah! And next thing you know, I'm that guy on YouTube. And those videos have hundreds of thousands of views now. But DMT is a very safe drug, and you're all in possession of it right now because it's a naturally occurring substance in your brain. But there are a couple others in this category that are highly illegal. LSD,
Shrooms,
and mushrooms, and ayahuasca, the original form of DMT. But we have studies now that show mushrooms even have a positive effect on mood, attitude, and outlook for people with one experience 6 months later. Well, the government has to make that illegal, right? Can't have happy people who can't be manipulated. That wouldn't work for the racket. And Macy is a really big advocate for mushrooms because she had an incredible experience over a summer where, if I may, a lot of what she experienced as a child growing up, trauma and challenging experiences, were resolved and overcome and understood in a deeper way as a result of this self-therapy experience that she was able to go through. And she's we've done acid a few times together now, and one of the there's a feeling that you get on acid that's really important to understand. So if you would all reach under your chairs. You get a tab, you get a tab, you get it. No Oprah Winfrey fans? All right. It's not that kind of party, maybe later. But you guys want to feel a little more free in about 10 seconds? You want to do a little exercise with me? You don't have to put anything in your body. All right. Close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and consider for just a moment that everything is right in the universe. And slowly exhale and open your eyes. Now, if you don't understand what we just did there, you will in about 20 minutes. But a lot of people get this sensation, this visceral understanding, through meditation, through fitness, through other forms of conscientious living. Sometimes we get meditation as an answer to this question. For those of you who aren't familiar with yoga, you might be surprised to learn that it was originally developed as a warm-up for meditation. And any good 90-minute session ends with 5 to 15 minutes of laying Shavasana meditation. Now, when I was in Fallujah in 2004, I was the guy who got up early every day to tell jokes and stories and sing songs and get the guys on my team in a good mood. And I found myself in the same sort of Zen engagement mindset when I was in jail for civil disobedience in D.C. 2 years ago on my government-induced, taxpayer-funded spiritual retreat in a beautiful gated community, meticulously manicured facilities, 24-hour security, really attentive staff. And every chance I got, I talked to the guards, right? Now, did anybody hear the podcast we did when I was in jail? It was really cool to be the guy who could call home on the jail phone and record podcasts because my producer was recording the phone calls. And so when you're that guy, the guards kind of pay attention, and at least when they wear name tags, they all follow the rules around you. Anybody here been to jail? Overnights count? Yes? Okay, so some of you know what it's like to be a ward of the state. I hope the rest of you have seen an episode of Orange is the New Black or something like that, right? It's not that hard to understand, but they have a certain responsibility, right? It's a really interesting relationship if you've never taken the time to understand it. But like being on probation, right, where you have to do what someone says, and if you disobey at any second, they send you back to jail instantly. Well, once you're already in jail, now it's almost like the dynamic kind of goes the other way, where they have this weird responsibility or obligation to take care of you after having imprisoned you unjustly. But every chance I got, when the guards were coming through the block, whether it was for meals or mail or just to turn the lights on and off in the middle of the night to piss people off, I would say, "Excuse me, sir, can you come here? I need to tell you something. I need to tell you something really important." And they would come over to the little window slit in the jail door, in the cell door, and I would say, "Sir, you're a free, beautiful, independent human being, and you should never let anyone tell you otherwise. Have a great day." Now, usually it's the people who have been to jail who giggle at that.
Sure, yeah. Wow.
But you know why? Because, especially if you've been to jail, what the guard is thinking. How is this guy on the inside of the cage happier than I am on the outside? Maybe it's because you work a terrible 9-to-5 for which you have to dress up in a silly costume every morning to be a cog in the machine for a boss who doesn't give a damn about you. Whereas the people that I'm here for have a lot more love behind what we're doing and a lot more righteous passion. And there was something that really hit home to me. And it wasn't just because, I had that Marine Corps whistle past the graveyard sense of humor, the greater the challenge, the happier we are. But there's a simple fundamental truth about the human experience of being a human consciousness, this incredible gift that we all enjoy, that you have the power to determine your mood, your attitude, your outlook at any moment that you can remain cognizant of that. Every bad day is self-imposed. Happiness is not something that you chase down and beat over the head with a club and drag home to your cage or your cave to enjoy forever and ever. It's a choice that you make in every moment. And we've been conditioned from birth to deny ourselves the emotional freedom required to be truly free. If you don't know how to be happy, what's the point of being free externally, right? Now, in the course of waking up, we are all brought down at some level, right? I mean, how many of you, nobody goes, gee, the world's more screwed up than I ever imagined possible. Yay! So how many of you, in the course of starting to pay attention, looked back at the cost of statism, of all the lives lost in war, of all the wealth transferred, of all the lives destroyed and opportunities lost? How many of you felt some kind of sadness or mourned for that, felt some kind of depression? Still too depressed to raise your hands? Okay, fine. It's not that bad. It's just like, billions of lives lost for no good reason. Okay, so maybe in the course of paying attention, you realize that you're more than 50 times likely to be killed by a cop than by a terrorist. Or that as much as the government wants you to be afraid of your neighbor because he might steal from you, the IRS is kind of a guarantee that someone's going to steal from you. And for the first time you were afraid of the right things. Maybe you felt some fear in understanding the power of the state. You don't have to be afraid to raise your hand. Yeah? I mean, even you, right? I mean, we're just paying attention is enough to raise this emotional reaction, right? Now, if you have any sense of justice, you must have felt some anger in the course of waking up, right? Anybody? All right, a few more hands for that. All right, sometimes when we have a big crowd, there's an applause. Yeah! People are really angry. Yeah, let's hear it for the angry people. Well, what do we do with this awareness then as activists? And it's a great motivator, all that negativity. But then we go out with our signs and our bullhorns to the street corner and yell things like, "Now join me in my fear and my anger and my depression." Some of you are giggling because you're like, oh shit. Who's been that guy? And what's the response you get? Screw you! I'm going back to watching Dancing with the Stars. I'm going to be a happy little wage slave. Why would I want any of your truth if it brings you down? What business do you have sharing something that's made your life worse? But that's not really the case, is it? We all choose this perspective, not just because we know it's the truth, but because we know that the truth leads to a better way of life. Because we know that that empowers us. So, you see how this changes your perspective on your activism to have this kind of emotional freedom? Now, sometimes as an answer to the bigger question, we get nonviolent communication. Any fans or students of nonviolent communication here? Yes, 2, 3. Excellent. Now, I know there's a bit of a problem with this, and I see a little some libertarians embarrassed to raise their hands for nonviolent communication. And I understand because a lot of libertarians, when they hear this for the first time, they go, "Well, it's communication. Of course it's nonviolent. Fuck you." And you go, that's the problem, right? Now, nonviolent communication, obviously it's a metaphor. Marshall Rosenberg wrote the book, Nonviolent Communication. It's the only one that I recommend on par with our own here. And it really will change every relationship in your life. But it's a methodology of maximizing the value of all of your communications. I mean, from a purely capitalist standpoint, like what does a CEO do when he's trying to assess his customers? What are their needs? How can I meet people's needs, right? That's how we create value, is by understanding what people need. And nonviolent communication provides a methodology of really getting in touch with that as efficiently and effectively as possible. We should all have an interest, right, in this. And one of the things that we do internally in being conditioned from birth is to deny ourselves in our internal dialogue that which, as libertarians, we want to extend to other people, right? Like it's very easy for me to say, as a fellow human being, I want your will to be respected. I want you to be able to engage in society freely. I want you to be able to provide value for others however you see fit in a way that you think is going to provide the maximum value for you. I want you to be able to flourish. And yet, the way we talk in the paradigm of judgment and control and fear keeps us from doing that for ourselves. And if you apply nonviolent communication to the internal dialogue, it fixes all of that, which is a nice benefit of it. But obviously, if we're trying to share information with other people, you'd think communication skills would be kind of high on our list for how to do that effectively. Now, this totally changes your approach, and you guys see this, right? That, you know, if you can put a smile on your face when you have a boot heel literally on your neck, and you can look up at that guy and smile, you see how that changes things? There's no hatred, no animosity, no angst, no resentment even. Why? Because everything is right in the universe. And there's a self-acceptance that goes with that. When you look at your fellow human being who is abusing you, it's just empathy, maybe pity. You guys don't really think that the cops who beat up protesters are well-adjusted human beings who go home to happy, loving households every night? Or that the politicians who seek power for satisfaction actually get it by winning the next election? Or the bankers? George Carlin said that trying to satisfy or trying to make yourself happy with money is like trying to satisfy your hunger by duct taping sandwiches to your body. By the way, money can buy happiness, but it only works if you spend it on other people. So we've been fooled, like really badly as a movement, to think of this as a political movement. And it's not. If politics is the conversation of who do we point the guns of government at to organize society, and our premise from the beginning is no, that's not a moral, legitimate, productive, harmonious, peaceful option, this is an anti-political movement. You're sick of politics? Good, we got the cure for that too. It's a philosophy movement, an ethics movement, a morals movement. You know what that means? You know, you've seen this. It behaves in some ways a lot more like a religious movement. What we do to grow the movement is win converts. And it's not converts to a dogma, so you have to believe in this. It's converts to thinking for yourself, to the anti-dogma. Right? So we kind of shy away from this, right? Like it's, oh, I'm going to convert you. No, but I want to share something with you that's of value to me. And we kind of do ourselves a disservice by mythologizing the process of waking up, right? Oh, it was this, or it was that. It was this one event, or this one thing. How many of you have seen the Jefferson Dance Party video from 2011? Yeah? All right. And people who don't know it by that, I got chokeslammed by a cop dancing at the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. You might have seen that. Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
Today.
What's that? Oh, today. All right. Well, it's fun to have people who like are meeting me for the first time and like don't remember and then go, "Oh, that was you?" But a lot of people come to me today even and say, "That video woke me up." And you know what? They're lying. Nobody went, Hey,
I just got
did you see that guy get chokeslammed by the cops? Yeah, and the Fed. Right? See, there's a bit of a leap there. Now,
I'm going to take my string down
people
and
used to think
change batteries
that the flat Earth was the center of the universe, right? And they could show how the sun and the moon went around the Earth. And is that light in people's eyes?
Oh yeah, I got a low battery signal, so I'm going to change batteries.